Yeah, so
Okay,
Ben told me, this is right at the end, one of the little questions I had for him was, do you like sausage sandwiches more or sausage rolls? And he went,
Yeah.
what's a sausage sandwich? I was like, a sausage sandwich? Do you not know what a sausage sandwich is? And I was like, he's like, no. And I was like, have you ever had a sausage sandwich? He went, no. Is it like where you chop up like sausages and put it in like sandwich and have like sauce with it? And I was like, well, yeah, but you've never had one before. And I literally explained it where you cook sausages and then you put that in a sandwich. And he was like, oh, yeah, I don't think I'm going to have one of them. And I was just like, what the fuck? Anyway, enough about Ben. Here we have one of the gods of EAM. Have a little introduction for him.
Ooh.
So, bassist, guitarist, and Kevin Parker wannabe. He has originated in the Sheffield. His previous bands include Brunchbox, T-Box, and Antarctic Monkeys. And some other shit bands from Sheffield because it's such a surplus. Thanks for joining the Cheesy Beans on Toast podcast.
Oh, is that the name? I didn't even know.
Yeah. So
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start with where we first laid eyes upon each other in a non-sexual manner.
I'm guessing it was that first band practice that I came to. In the old Fairfax. I think it was there, probably. I'm not sure.
Because for a long time you were just a name that Jacob kept mentioning. He's like, there's this one person on my course that I like. And I was like, okay, he's called Andrew. And he showed us some of your stuff, and I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. And then I was saying, because we were looking for a bass player, because we had everyone, and I said, why don't we ask him? And then I remember Jacob was kind of like, oh, he plays guitar, and I think he asked you, and I think you immediately said yes. Do you have a good / ropey memory in Everything After Midnight, or either when Everything After Midnight had been together and not necessarily in a gig setting?
Well, unfortunately, in a gig setting, I thought the one I thought of instantly was Victoria Volts when we all dressed up for Halloween. I thought that was pretty entertaining. I mean, I was kind of like shitting myself a bit because I thought everyone might think we looked a bit stupid, and I think they definitely did, but I think that was great fun.
I remember that when we were talking about ideas of what to do in terms of how to dress up. And I mean, we had much better ideas and lots of other thought ones. And then the first one was said, why don't we all dress up as Liam Gallagher and Noel Gallagher? And then I remember going, no, that's silly. And then the final one and the final thing is we did it. Go check out. Oh, is it on our Instagram?
I don't know. If not, it should be. Maybe we'll have to do a little throwback post.
You might have to take it off the archived post.
Yeah.
Everyone can see it, and it is, to be fair, that was a funny gig. So I want you to explain why I nickname you Dogman.
Right. Well, I don't really know fully, but as far as I remember, you had a dream, and in that dream I appeared as a dog. That's the most that I remember of it.
Because I think it was part of like summer when we were coming to York to practice. And I just had this dream where I was petting this dog, like really like innocently. And then the dog turned around, but it was like your face, but as if like someone like really badly CGI'd it on, like 2001 sort of PS1 graphics or PS2 graphics or whatever. And I remember seeing it and going, oh, that's Andrew. And then I woke up and I was just like, oh my god, Andrew's a dog. And I think it was just one of those things where I was chatting shite and thought, Dogman would be his name. It doesn't make sense.
Dogman.
Starting with how we work, what would you say is one of the big positives of how we work as a band and how we function compared to either other bands you know or other bands you've been in?
I don't know. I think it's a really collaborative process that we go through, especially using we've been using BandLab online to pull together ideas from each member. I think that's really, really great. Because we can use everybody's kind of own influences to create stuff like Home and all the spaces in between, which is completely different to like anything we might have done otherwise. Because let's say in Brunchbox, the old band, it would tend to just be I'll create a demo and then they'll come and record bass and drums on top of it, which is less of like collaboration. It's more you have your part, you do that, and that's it. So it's far less binary, I suppose, in EAM, I think, which is really great.
Moving on to what you think you bring to the band, what would you say your influences are when I come at you with a drop D riff and go, work on this, bitch?
Well,
what would you say?
Yeah, it's a tough one, but I think I'm more, when I create music, in the mindset of maybe somebody who's creating like a beat or something like that. So I tend to kind of create parts and then arrange them afterwards. So it's different when you like present a part in that way, but at the same time, I think it's easier to like build off it, knowing that I can just like add different layers and then maybe not have that going the whole way through. I'll just, if you had a riff, I'll just put it at the start, I'll put it here, I'll put it there. So yeah, I don't know.
I think that's a cool thing you say about layers though, because I sort of view it as whenever I do something, so if Jacob brings it, or if Steph brings lyrics, or you bring bass, or even if Ben did something like on drums, I always view my guitar bit as it's just a layer of a part of a song, rather than like I don't intend to write something. Like I don't really do pretty normal guitar things and stuff. Like that's not my cup of tea. But I've always viewed it as like my part should sit in it, kind of as a part of everything else, but still have its own like sort of uniqueness to it. But I think that's cool how you say about the beat sort of thing. And then moving on from the influences that you bring, and then how the band is. Did you expect to be in a band which had influences ranging from like Wolf Alice to Chic, and then obviously to the Gods, Sting and Shaggy? Did you expect to be in a band like that, or not, or what you?
I mean, I think from the first band I was in, which like the first proper band I was in, which was Brunchbox, we just did like, you know, your Circa Waves, like that kind of thing. And then I think I moved away from liking that kind of music into just like randomly picking out tracks from all over the place. But I've never really been into the kind of music that at least the covers we started playing, I'd pretty much never heard of them. I never been into like the older side of music in most senses anyway. So I definitely wouldn't say I expected it, but I've enjoyed it, and it's interesting to see like in those, I mean, I guess a bit older songs, like where people draw inspiration after the fact. And yeah, so I definitely didn't expect it, but it's been positive, definitely.
The bringing the freshness, like it's sort of nice, like, and I think the fact that you say that new music is more your thing, it's sort of like it's better to be, you know, be a millennial than a fucking boomer going on about how the Beatles revolutionised music and whatever.
Yeah.
But I think people's music taste changes as well. Mine's changed like in the last day. So as you were saying, it's going from like indie music to then like taking bits out of different songs that you like. Because I know you're into like A$AP Rocky and kind of rap things. And then obviously you like Tame Impala, and you still like indie music and all these different little things. It sort of works. How would you feel about the York scene in terms of bands you like, how it works, and then any bandsock bands that you might like who are also in the scene?
I think there's definitely a few bands that I like. I think Honey Trap and the Howl and the Hum especially stand out for me, just because I feel like, I mean, they're kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum. One of them's probably been together for like 7 years, the other one maybe just a few months. But I like how melodic they are, and I think they have quite a mature sound. I think overall, the music that I tend to be drawn to is like if it sounds kind of authentic. And I think Honey Trap, his voice is kind of like Ben Howard-ish. and
Yeah.
I like that it conveys emotion, I think, quite well. So I'm enjoying Honey Trap a lot, and the Howl and the Hum, their first album, I did enjoy. I maybe enjoyed half the songs on there. I think some of them were a bit throwaway, but I definitely enjoying that York music. I'm not too deep into the scene other than that particularly. I don't know that many other bands that I like would go out and listen to particularly.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I sort of feels the same with, I think Honey Trap are good. I think Bull, they're quite good. There's a lot of people who are quite good, but like I still feel like it's annoying that I've lived in a city and I've known about these bands, but it still feels like there's not necessarily a community other than probably like Fulford Arms is the bands who play there and local. Like everyone kind of sort of talks about there, and obviously like the Crescent's good, Basement's good, and Victoria Vaults, even though it's a bit grimy, we've got good memories. So it's sort of like it feels like there's something just waiting to kind of sort of burst out. But I think Honey Trap, as you're saying, they sound pretty authentic, and I think there's a few bands who are in York who are just like, how are you like in York? Like they sound like they're from like, I don't know, like Boston in America, like as if they've been influenced by like obscure like alternative music. But I think Howl and the Hum, that's pretty good, and half an album saying that's good. That's if I could write an album and half of it's good, that's it.
True.
Tick off the list. Moving south of York to hometown Sheffield. Generally, what was it like kind of growing up in Sheffield in terms of both the music and generally just your life and how it was?
I mean, I think I'm probably an outlier in that I've lived in the same house for my whole life. So I've kind of not explored Sheffield maybe as much as I could have if I'd not lived here the whole time. But I mean, the area around here is amazing. I think Sheffield's amazing for all the green spaces it has. You can just walk maybe half an hour and you're out in the Peak District. So that's been great. All the parks, stuff like that, in terms of just growing up, have been amazing. In terms of the music, I don't know really. Like, I think maybe 10 years ago, I would just have been listening to the charts and stuff, and like JLS. I think I was listening, but looking back, the first album that I ever bought on iTunes, I think, was of Monsters and Men. They did an album like with Little Talks on it and stuff. Like that was the first thing that I properly listened to, and then I mean it's never been too tied to Sheffield for me. I think the first band that kind of awakened me musically was Catfish and the Bottommen. As much as it may pain you to hear it, I saw them at Why Not in 2016, and that kind of made me pick up my guitar again after my Ed Sheeran phase.
Yes, the Ed Sheeran phase, the best phase to have. I'm still going through the Ed Sheeran phase. I'm still going through it.
Yeah, the Ed Sheeran and Ben Howard, that was me for a good while. But yeah, I mean, like I say, it's never been too tied to Sheffield for me. Obviously, there is the Arctic Monkeys, who I've still never seen live, which is pretty annoying. But they're obviously a huge inspiration. But yeah, it's not too tied to a location for me, I don't think.
I think that's quite interesting, because in terms of the impression of when you would say bands, you seem to know a few. Because I'm right in saying you went to a music college.
It's a sixth form that is a performing arts sixth form. It's supposed to be anyway. That's what it's supposed to specialise in. So it has facilities like a little recording studio and practice rooms, etc.
All right, because the impression I've always got is because you knew all these bands, you seem to know like the ins and outs, and especially in venues. We were talking about the tour, rest in peace tour. When we're talking about that, you seem to know like a lot of venues, and I got the impression of like, you know, like the ins and outs and stuff. But the fact that you're saying you haven't necessarily associated with Sheffield in terms of music is particularly interesting.
Well, I think like I would go and see bands a lot. Like I think there was points where I was maybe 16, 17 where I'd go to Lead Mill like every weekend, but it was not to see Sheffield bands most of the time. It'd be to see the Magic Gang and Blaine Avon and Sonora Karma and people coming from lots of other places. So I definitely have associations with the venues, but less the actual kind of culture and the bands coming out of Sheffield, I think.
That's pretty rare. I was not expecting. Moving on to a Sheffield, I don't know what the fuck I call it. The Star Music Festival of Sheffield.
Yeah.
Tram lines. Because obviously, my opinion of what you think of it is slightly mixed because of its upgrade to Hillsborough Park. I was just saying, what is your opinion of that festival? Do you like it? And any bands who you feel have benefited from it, etc., etc.?
Yeah, well, I've only been once, admittedly. I think I went in 2017 when the headliners were the Libertines, Primal Scream and Metronomy, I think. And that was probably only 40 quid to see all of them. And then they had loads of people under them. They had Loyal Kana, The Far Side. Like they bring lots of cool stuff together. So I really enjoyed the festival. But I think that might have been the last year where it was an inner city festival where you had to travel around. And ever since then, as you say, it's been hosted in Hillsborough Park. And I just don't see the point of an inner city music festival that's hosted in one place and it's not camping, because then it's essentially it's like Leeds Festival without camping and it's a bit smaller. And obviously it's nice to have it in your own city, but for me, I think the point of the inner city music festival is to travel around and you can go to all these independent venues that you might not have been to before. It brings them money, and then it's also exploring the city and brings other people to your city to explore. I don't really think my opinion is as high of it now it's just in one location.
I think that's quite pointing out as well, obviously independent venues, because obviously at the moment with coronavirus they're all struggling a bit, and I think that's quite a good point, the fact that it's moved and it's like obviously like in a park and there's no camping, which kind of, in my opinion, defeats the purpose of a festival. But I think that's sort of good how he's saying, because I think like Hit the North in Newcastle, the good thing about Hit the North is travelling between venues,
right?
Because that's when you just like most of the time like you're absolutely smashed and you just like chat shit or whatever, or just, you know, getting to and from and stuff. But when I went to Tramlines last summer, I enjoyed it, but I thought curfew was a bit shit. Curfew was like 10 at the latest, which is a bit like, that's pretty wank. And also, if I had to choose between going to Hillsborough Park or going between venues, I probably would choose going between venues, because you get, as you're saying, you get to know more about Sheffield, and obviously Sheffield gets the benefit. But ooh, a Tramlines. Ooh.
I mean, because if it's an inner city festival as well, you kind of get to, like, I didn't know the curfew was 10. You kind of get to like slide into the nightlife after you've then seen all these bands as well, which is even better for the city. So it's just silly. Just silly. Because
to be fair, in terms of the nightlife, there was one of the nights where we were going to go to the Lead Mill, and obviously Hillsborough Park is a bit of a distance. And bearing in mind the two people who shall remain nameless wanted to go back home and get food and shower. I was a bit like, you wouldn't do that at a festival, but needless to say, then when we got to the Lead Mill, the queue was just like, we didn't get in. There was no way we were going to get in because the queue was just like ridiculous. Now moving on to a very opinion-based thing of big questions for big boys. So you mentioned about Sheffield and kind of being a little bit detached about it, but knowing the bands here and there. Do you think that how Sheffield is as a city and of the music scene, do you think it's going to stagnate soon and reach a saturation point where it'll just like end, or it'll just be people get sick, or do you think it's going to be very much a continuous cycle of what it currently is?
Yeah, I think I'd go with the cycle. Just with anywhere really, it's like there's definitely always going to be those bands on every evening in a pub that are like the same and they sound like the Arctic Monkeys and etc. etc. But I think you get maybe 1 in every 100 bands. You'll get something a bit exciting, a bit new, like maybe like Belle de Jour. They're all young, really talented like kids. I think that they could really come up with something exciting. And I was listening to a different podcast talking about Bombay Bicycle Club, and I think when they recorded their first album they were in their teens, 16, 17, and the singer was already off making other kinds of music, electronic music, and that's the same in Belle de Jour. The bass player called Ewan, he's off making these like dub kind of remixes and stuff. So I think bands like them who aren't just going, we like Arctic Monkeys, will sound like them, they can definitely push music forward, but there is that saturation point that will be reached with the other bands, which will hopefully cause them to kind of realise we're not going to get anywhere with this, we need to evolve. But yeah, I don't know.
Because obviously there's the bands like the Ratings, who are from Sheffield, and they're basically just a first album Arctic Monkeys. And then there's obviously Oddity Road, rest in pieces, hashtag sad they got cancelled. They had a kind of that Sheffield sort of sound, but they did. Oddity Road were doing pretty fucking well for themselves, and the Ratings. They were going on about headlining Sheffield O2 Academy. It was like no radio play, no press, and it's like okay. Yeah, keep telling yourself that, you fucking dickheads.
Yeah, I think that what's the word for it? Immature sound can only last so long. I've never actually listened to the Ratings, but if that's kind of what they sound like, then I don't see where they can go with it particularly.
And it's sort of like it's like hats off to them for getting to sell out the O2 Academy in Sheffield is sort of like that's an achievement, but it's sort of like if you compare it to a lot of bands, like you say Belle de Jour, and even listen to Juno, the song they have on Spotify or whenever it was released, and they have a sound which seems more, it's pushing it a bit, and also it's sort of like a sound that could withstand more like the test of time and has a more kind of a longer life to it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting that you said about the cycle, because I thought you were going to say fuck Sheffield and die off. The next question, which is a pretty big one, is do you think guitar music is dead?
It's a tough one, this. I don't know what's guitar music. That's the initial thing that I think of is.
I would say guitar music is anything which is predominantly focused on a guitar. So for example, SoundCloud rapper, no. However, everything after midnight, yes. That's sort of a dynamic.
I would probably lean towards yes in that case. Just in terms of if a song is just driven by 2 guitars, and that's it. There's not, unless you're doing stuff like you're doing, where you're making it interesting, but that's almost making it not sound like a guitar anymore in a lot of cases. I think if you're literally just both strumming and that's it, at least for me, that's dead, because it doesn't interest me, unless it's a nostalgia thing where I'm listening to old bands that I kind of used to like. I think you're not going to get too far with it. Like with Circa Waves that I was on about earlier, their first few albums were really guitar driven, but I was listening yesterday to a few of their new songs, and it's moved a bit away from that kind of sound, and I think that they're evolving away, and kind of same with Arctic Monkeys, I suppose, to a lot of people's discontent. It's not so just like heavy guitar all the time, but that's just how I see it in terms of it's tarnished with my enjoyment of music, I suppose.
No, I think that's very valid. I remember watching a video on the Greatest Metal YouTube channel, Loudwire, and they were going on about why there's no more rock stars or whatever anymore. They'll say that like they're all rock stars, it's just in the form of rappers. Because is it ASAP Rocky who has that Netflix documentary film? And I've watched part of it, and like he's very much like the Liam Gallagher of now in terms of the way it's being treated and stuff. But I agree with you that you've got to make it interesting, and just doing the like AC/DC like 4 chords and stuff is pretty boring, and doing just like solos is pretty like, I mean, solos have been dead for I think since the 80s really. Like no one really touches on them
unless you can turn the solo into like almost an EDM style drop where it like builds up so much and then it kind of cuts out and you go into this crazy solo. Unless it's like a payoff in the song, I think it is pointless. And a lot of it is just like the guitarist wants to have a little noodle, I think.
Yeah, just get your violin bows out, ladies and gentlemen, or just get some pedals. Just pour your pedals on and just leave it. The magic of the Aidan Robson tutorial on how to music. We've reached the penultimate part of this episode, which is a quick fire round. So I'm going to throw some questions at you, and you've got to answer them in a millisecond. And if you don't answer them in a millisecond, then I'm going to replace you in Everything After Midnight with Richard Hawley's song.
Good luck with that.
First question: what's your favourite biscuit?
Ooh, custard cream.
Oh,
I mean, it's got to be.
do you know what I love about custard cream in a cup of tea? I love custard cream when it melts. I'm gonna go to the shop now and get some.
I've got some downstairs. I'm buzzing. Do you ever just take off one side and then just like eat the inside bit?
Oh, you take it off and then you scrape it off like with your teeth.
Yeah, with your teeth.
Anyway, going off topic. Next question: Arctic Monkeys or Oddity Road?
Oh, it's gotta be Odyssey Road. Nah, I don't know. I think it's Arctic Monkeys, man. I'm sorry.
Ooh, Oddity Road. Oddity Road for life.
To be fair, the energy is impressive.
The next question is, I think, the question of all questions.
Oh, God.
Jacob Cooper or Tom Hewing?
In what? Just overall, human being?
That's it.
Ooh, golly gosh. Tom Ewing all the way.
Yes.
Keep take it outside the band.
I'm definitely leaving that in this interview. And then the last one is describe yourself in one word.
Raj.
You can't know, because what's going to happen is I'm going to get interviewed or something by someone and be like, oh, describe yourself in one word. I'm going to say Raj, and then I bet you they bring it up and be like, oh, that's what Andrew described himself as. I was like, yeah, but it's my word.
Alright, Ori then.
What?
What's the Sheffieldism? I'm just Ray. I'm Ray.
You're Ray.
I'm Ray.
No, I'm going to let you have Raj, because I'm not happy to say you're Ray, because that's too Yorkshire. No one really likes Yorkshire dialect anyway. Anyway, that is the end of that round. Thank you, wonderful Andrew, for partaking in today's episode of
Thank you so much.
Ready Steady Cook. I hope we've had fun, and I hope that everyone now knows that he hates Sheffield, and everyone in Sheffield should go kill him and love Richard Hawley's son. Wave bye to all 5 people watching this.
Over and out.
Over and out. Bye bye. Bye bye.